Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I'd like to look at how the USE minis unfolded yesterday, which was May 22nd. In yesterday's training webinar for MTPredictor customers, we were looking at this TS1 buy setup here, and we were looking at how this was in the direction of the large degree uptrend as identified by our blue STF color here. Right at the end of the trading webinar, this TS3 came in here, so we didn't really get time to have a look at this in great detail. However, normally when this happens, we look to see whether this is what we call a holy grail trade setup. Now, a holy grail trade setup is where we have a major high followed by initial decline, followed by initial correction that unfolds an A, B, C, that then we look to rather trade to the minimum wave CWPT. We look for a strong wave 3 type decline and get into a strong short trade like this. But it all depends on how this high unfolded here, in other words the start of the sequence. Just before I get into that, for any traders who did take this short trade, even once we reached this minimum wave CWPT, you can see the STF was strong, so at the very least you should have then swapped to the ATR stop and trailed down here for, well, a very nice trade indeed. But that's not the point of this particular recording. The particular recording today is to show or talk about this major high here. If I look to the 15-minute chart, this is what I was discussing in the webinar, is that the only resistance I could find was our typical wave 3 WPT that nailed the high yesterday, but obviously after this we wouldn't have anticipated such a strong decline. So I was talking about that trying to find a high or a major high there yesterday was actually very hard. So even in hindsight, this would have been a very good trade. I think at the time this would have been a very difficult one to take, particularly take it as a holy grail short trade, because this high here would have been very hard to justify as an important high. So in today's video I want to look at how we could have got into this trade or into a short trade a bit later in the day. So let's assume that the market came down, was going back up. You saw this TS3 sell here, the market started to decline, you looked at this and thought, it looks like the market's going down, how can I get into a short trade to take advantage? Well, what I've been talking about in the last couple of weeks is looking at the Elliott wave patterns and trying to teach you about particular a corrective pattern. Now, the corrective pattern, or the most common corrective pattern in Elliott wave, is an ABC correction. So ideally the market should have gone down here, it should have corrected back up here in an ABC. So if we do right mouse click, right mouse click here and did Elliott wave minor, there was no particular pattern on this ES chart here. This is why we follow different markets. If I look at the NQ, again we had our same TS3 sell here, but we're not talking about that. We're looking about trying to get into a minor pattern here. Wave 2 or B is not quite what I was looking for. If I then go to the YM 3-minute chart, again at the 1 o'clock time here, if I right mouse click, Elliott wave minor, this is what I was looking for. In other words, the market came down, it then did an ABC up here, which we know is a corrective pattern. So when a corrective pattern, particularly the ABC, unfolds like this, we then assume, or we know, that the market's then going to carry on down. As an aside, if I go to the 1-minute chart here, if you were following this as well, here's our TS3 sell setup, or TS1 sell setup there. The market came down. It came down, if I look at the Elliott wave intermediate, in 5 waves. It then corrected back up into our 1 o'clock high there in an ABC pattern here. So this was an ideal confirmation that this was now at the end of a correction and the market was likely to go down. So let's go back to the 3-minute chart. So how could we have got in a trade on this? Well, we know that we use our red and blue bars for reversed indications. So as this red sell bar here was ending, you could have used that to place a trade in and around that, and the market then declined down here. Before I do that, actually I'll just take that off. Before I do that, I want to show you how this market came down, but not in any old sequence. If I right mouse click here, do Elliott wave intermediate, just look at the pattern of this decline, an absolutely perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with the low coming in pretty much at the minimum wave 5 WPT. This is why the ABC minor pattern in here was absolutely perfect, because we know, and for you guys who've been following me for a while, you'll know that my perfect setup is an ABC correction in a wave 2, which is exactly what unfolded here. So here you were with this setup in and around the red cell bar there. You then take the market down. Once you reach the minimum wave 5 WPT, you then start to trail the bars, or trail the stop just above the bars high, and that would have locked in a very nice profit indeed. Remember, we use position sizing to keep our initial risk small under control. So that's the topic of this video here, is even though we would have missed this original setup, this TS1 sell here, which of course if we had caught it would have been absolutely ideal, that even though you would have been missed this original setup, by following the market and understanding what kind of pattern to look for, you could have seen that you had a 5-wave decline down here on the 1-minute chart, or even if you weren't looking at the 1-minute chart, the market was declining. But most importantly, this rally up in here to the 1 o'clock high unfolded as an ABC. An ABC is a corrective pattern. This gave you the chance to then enter a new short trade to then take advantage as the market declined down. So this is what you can do with the tools in MTPredictor once you gain the experience and understanding, which is what we try to teach you in our trading webinars, to understand what kind of patterns unfold and where they unfold. And again, looking at this, this was absolutely perfect, where we had the wave 1 coming down here, the wave 2 unfolded as an ABC, we then got the completed 5-wave sequence going down to the low. So hopefully this has been a good video to show you how, even if you missed this initial setup here, which again would have been very hard to catch because we didn't have a major high here, that if you now wanted to get into a short trade, that ABC correction there on the minor swings would have been the ideal place to do it, which then allowed you to take advantage of the fall yesterday. So a very interesting day there yesterday for MTPredictor.